afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name's GBay99. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, it is not day. Today, it is currently midnight on Friday, where I just got back from the casino, which I want to take some time to talk to you guys about a little bit. So, recently, those of you who've followed my YouTube channel for a long time or followed my stream, you guys know that I love poker. Poker is something I've been interested in ever since 2006 or 2007 when I watched Anand Medak win a World Series of Poker bracelet in a pot limit hold'em tournament. If any of you have seen that, on the off chance that any of you guys have seen what I'm talking about, you probably know what a crazy event it was. And I remember watching that. I was like 14 years old, 15 years old at the time. I was just glued to the TV watching it on ESPN2 at 1 in the morning or something. But anyway, ever since then, I have been interested in poker. Now, I never got to play poker when I was 14. I never got to go to a casino or anything. I'm still only 22 years old, going to be 23 in about 30 days. So I still have plenty of... I still have plenty of inexperience, even if I have been interested in it for a while. But recently I've been going down to the casino and playing in a live setting, which I never went to the casino here in Cincinnati downtown. But my mind has been on poker quite a bit with me going down. I just got back today where I played in a tournament that I've only played in 2 tournaments at that casino. The first one was terrible. I got no hands. Eventually I had to shove all in with kings. A guy had pocket 10s and then he rivered a 10, which I was so upset. I was like, I didn't even get to do anything. But this time it was 163 people entered and I finished in like top 40, top 50. I didn't cash, but it was massive improvement, so I felt pretty good about it. But anyway, I want to take some time to talk to you guys a little bit about why, more specifically, the subject I want to talk about in this video, is why I think poker is like the real-world version of a video game. Why I think poker is like the first video game ever, except it's not a video game, obviously. I think if you ever take a look at the World Series of Poker, the World Series of Poker main event, or any big poker tournament, you typically see a lot of people that used to be pro gamers. That used to be pro StarCraft players, pro Counter-Strike players playing in the World Series of Poker, which I always think is kind of interesting. You know, gamers have always had... It's called gaming, right? That's what gambling is called sometimes, is gaming, because you're playing games. You know, blackjack is a game. But I think that there's a real connection between video games and poker in an interesting way that some people have probably remarked on before, but not too many, to a point where I would remark on it a little bit. So, firstly, let's just give a very quick rundown of what poker is, for those of you who are unfamiliar. No Limit Texas Hold'em is the most popular version of poker, where you get dealt 2 cards. And there's a total of 5 community cards, 5 cards on the board that everybody can use to try and make the best hand that you possibly can. You know, poker hands, a straight, a pair, 2 pair, royal flush. You're trying to make the best hand that you possibly can, and if you win, if you have the best hand out of everyone at the table, then you get all of the money in the pot or all the chips if you're playing in a tournament. Now, that's just the basics of poker, right? But the interesting thing is that you don't get to see your opponent's cards. You know what you have, and sometimes you have the best possible hand on a board. You know, there's only 2 cards that will make the best possible hand, and you could have that best possible hand. That's called having the nuts. But most of the time you don't have the nuts. Most of the time you have to bet and try and see, you know, try and use betting strategy to figure out what your opponents have, figure out what you have in relation to your opponents, if you're the best hand at the table, and bet to either try and steal the pot, bet to either try and fill the pot with your opponent's money, and at the end of the day, take everybody's money, right? I'm not too sure if this is a good example. I've never really had to... if this is a poor explanation, please forgive me. I've never had to explain poker to anyone that didn't play it before. But the interesting thing about poker is that it's a game of incomplete information, which means that it can never be completely mastered. There is never a 100% right move for you to make every single time. So think about it like this. If you play checkers or if you play chess, those are games of complete information. you know everything that's happening. You see every piece on the board, and because it's a game of complete information, and because some of the, checkers in particular is very simple, there's always a right move. And people have made computers that you can never beat if you play them in checkers. Because checkers is such a simple game, and it's a game of complete information that there's always a right move that if you teach a computer how to play, then you'll be able to, always make the right move and never lose the game. A similar thing is true with chess. Chess is a lot more complicated, and I don't believe there's a computer that's never been beaten. There are certainly some computers out there that people have, that the best chess players in the world struggle in beating. But the thing is, those are games of complete information, which I heard one person say this, that doesn't actually make them a game. It makes it more like a math problem, right? Because there's always a right answer, and you can always figure out that right answer because you have all the information. But when you take a look at other games, when you take a look at video games, for instance, most competitive games are games of incomplete information. Like, think about League of Legends. League of Legends is a game where you don't always know everything that's happening. Why? Because the fog of war exists. You cannot always see your opponents. Most RTSs or most strategy games like League of Legends or StarCraft, they have the fog of war, which means that you will never always know what's happening, right? If you always see your opponent and what they're doing, then you can always make the right decision of doing whatever, but you don't always get to see where everybody is. Some champions in League of Legends are, they jungle throughout the fog of war, and you can never be 100% certain where they are if you don't see them on the map. Some champions are invisible, like Evelynn and Twitch, and complete bullshit because you can't even ward against them because you can only buy one pink ward. And oh my god, I hate playing against those enemies when they're on the jungle. But anyway, you see what I'm talking about, right? League of Legends is a game that you can't design a computer to eventually beat because you'll never have all the information available to you to always make a correct decision. You can guess where your opponents might be, you can guess what your opponents might be doing, you can assume they might be going to do Baron, but you'll never be 100% certain. And that fog of war is what makes League of Legends so interesting in that way, and similar other games. Taking it back to poker, though, poker is a game of incomplete information because you can't see your opponent's cards. And when you can't see your opponent's cards, that means that you have options for how you want to play certain situations. There's never 100% right decision to make. Poker is a game of mathematics, so there are certainly, moments where you're getting the right odds to call your I don't know if any of these phrases will mean anything to you guys, but sometimes there's moments in poker where it's like, okay, you should 3-bet aces in this position. You should, bet here. That's the right play to make. But the amount that you bet, when you choose to bet, when you choose to raise, when you choose to flat call someone else's bet instead of re-raising them, when you choose to fold and everything, it's all subjective because you never have a 100% understanding of what your opponents are doing and how strong your opponent's hands are. And although you can certainly play badly and there are mistakes that you can make, I think you guys know what I mean. I'm starting to talk in circles at this point. It's a game of incomplete information. Getting back to the big topic of this video, though, my claim that I think poker is the first version of a video game, or the original game before video games existed. I think there's 3 things that really make me believe that, and 3 things that you can see certain parallels between current popular games, particularly competitive games, esports like League of Legends, Overwatch, and whatnot, and compare them with poker. The first of which is poker does a phenomenal job, just as good, if not better, than many games out there, at hitting a sweet spot of appealing to both a casual audience and a competitive audience, right? When you can be the worst poker player in the world, right? You can actually be completely ignorant to what you're supposed to do in a million situations and never know. You can go in and start playing poker and have no idea what you're doing, but because there's an element of luck involved, you will still be able to win hands, right? If you get dealt pocket aces, as long as you know pocket aces is a good hand, you will be able to win hands and you will be able to win money despite your lack of knowledge. However, poker is also a game that, there's however many hundreds, thousands of pro players out there that make obscene amounts of money from playing the game through, playing a strategy that's incredibly effective, incredibly good, and and a strategy that they're able to consistently turn a profit with, make all sorts of ridiculous amount of money. It's something that obviously has a massive competitive audience, but it's something that still appeals to casuals. And I think poker is actually sort of the great equalizer in that way. If you ever watch the World Series of Poker, you'll notice that there's plenty of pro players there. If you follow the poker scene, you'll see, Phil Ivey, Daniel Negreanu, Phil Hellmuth. But you'll also see celebrities. You'll see Matt Damon. You'll see Ray Romano. You'll see a bunch of just random celebrities that are playing in the World Series of Poker. And you'll see a lot of people that the commentators refer to as amateurs, who are people that are just like you and me. They're not super experienced and incredibly good at the game. They're amateurs. But poker, you can get lucky and still win, right? You can get lucky and still win, and it's an interesting game where it does the exact same thing that many other games do, where both really competitive people can enjoy it, but a casual audience certainly can as well. The second thing that I think makes poker very similar to video games is that it has an evolving metagame in a similar way to most games. In League of Legends and Hearthstone and Overwatch and a lot of current popular games, you have a metagame that evolves mostly based around the changes that the game has and patch notes. Like in League of Legends, right, whatever patch happens, you have the lethality nerfs, and then suddenly lethality isn't as good as it once was. Or you have the buffs to Cho'Gath, and suddenly Cho'Gath is a lot better than he was before. And then the champion pick rates and the champion win rates and everything adjust based off of that. Poker obviously doesn't have that, but poker has an evolving metagame in a similar way that Super Smash Bros. Melee does. Super Smash Bros. Melee is a game that has not changed an inch. It has not changed at all for the past 15 years? When did that game come out? 2001? It has not changed a bit for however long it's been out now. So poker is a similar thing. In Super Smash Bros. Melee, you have a metagame that evolves based around tendencies that players have, and eventually trying to work towards like 20xx and everything. But if you just look at the past 10 or 15 years of Melee, you see, when Jigglypuff was first introduced as a character, and nobody really expected Jigglypuff to be a good character because nobody played her, no pro player, no super good player was incredibly good with her. Back in the early 2000s, the best player in the world was Ken, who played Marth. Marth is a character, not a champion. He's a character that might frustrate you with his long sword range if you're playing pub games with your friends, but I mean, he didn't win a national tournament until Pew Pew U won with him in like 2015, I think. He had like a 6-year stretch where nobody played him people played him, but nobody won a major tournament with him because he wasn't as good, even though arguably the greatest player, the king of Smash, was able to be so incredibly successful with that same character, and the game didn't change at all. It's just people that eventually, work towards figuring out the tendencies and strategies that current players use, and then trying to change them and figure out how to exploit the weaknesses of those strategies with new characters or new ways of playing the game. It's all happening while the game is completely the same, and poker is the exact same thing. I can't really tell you the deep metagame of poker and say that, in 2006 people played this way that's so different from today. But if you read old poker books, you'll read all these tips and advice from old poker pros of like the 90s and 80s that tell you to do stuff like fold your blinds, fold your small blinds and your big blinds. Well, a lot of poker players nowadays will say defend your small blinds and big blinds because particularly if you're getting good odds to call, then you hemorrhage a lot of money or chips from your blinds if you just constantly fold them unless you have a premium hand. So that might not mean anything to you guys who don't play poker, but it's another thing that changes and evolves over time despite the gameplay staying the exact same. And finally, the third thing that I think really makes poker interesting and comparable to video games is that it's a game of high scores. That's what poker is. It's a game of trying to get a really big high score. The difference in poker compared to video games is in poker, points are measured by money. So, you try and win as many points as possible. You try and win as much money as possible and grind it up. But it's the same thing. You're just trying to grind up a lot of points, which it's a funny way to think about things, but it's true. And it's I don't know. It's a really interesting game if you take a look at it. It's a really interesting game that has all this strategy and all this mental stuff going into it that, you see people making millions of dollars from it, which it's really like the oldest video game. It's been around, or No Limit Hold'em at least, has been around for at least a couple hundred years, right? I feel like I could talk about it forever. I hope this video isn't getting too long and you guys aren't getting bored. I guess one thing I should probably say to close out this video is don't listen to me here and say like, whoa, Jibei said poker is the greatest thing in the world. I'm going to go lose all my money playing poker. If you actually want to get into poker, one thing that you need to know is that poker is a game that is incredibly unforgiving. There's so much, it's like Hearthstone. There's a lot of luck involved. And sometimes that luck works in your favor and you're feeling good, right? I had a hand earlier tonight where I had an ace-queen on a flop that was queen 3-4, and then some guy moved all in on me. I called him, and he had 4-3. He had 2 pair, so he sort of outplayed me there. I mean, that's probably the right call to make with ace-queen, but, he was supposed to win that hand, but then I ended up rivering a queen, getting 3 of a kind, which beat his 2 pair. Like, that felt good to get lucky, even though I was supposed to lose that hand. But the opposite happens as well. Poker is a game where you will play really well sometimes, and you will get punished for playing well. You will fold kings when you think your opponent has aces, and your opponent will have aces, but then you'll hit a king on the flop. It's something that it's so unforgiving. It will reward bad play and punish good play, and it will make you so depressed when you go on those bad beats, when you get on those losing streaks. That's where the original phrase tilt comes from. Actually, someone told me I think tilt comes from pinball. That's where the phrase originated. But in a game sense, it typically originates from poker. Anyway, though, I kind of thought today might be fun to talk about all this stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you've been enjoying the channel lately. I hope you've been enjoying all these videos on Jibei 100. And as always, if you want to leave feedback in the comments, feel free to do so. But I'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Good luck on the felt, and have a wonderful day.